Ruff talking about it. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a hard game, I'll tell you that.
Lindy Ruff.
Clip one.
Oh, we got no Lindy clips. What did Lindy say, though? Oh, we found it.
Well, I think it's something you got to embrace the challenge. It's not what you want to see in your building, obviously, but we've got a challenge ahead of us. We know it's all about the 2 points, not about the fans. We play well. We can take the fans out of the game.
That clip's devastating, and it felt intentional.
I know.
I actually didn't hear it before we came on air.
I don't know. Did he get a laugh off of it? Was there a laugh off of it?
That's a good point. Was it a joke? Was he trying to get a laugh?
It wasn't much of a laugh, no.
It wasn't.
No.
Because if he's sending a message like we're trying to take their fans out of it.
I would have said that, and I would have thought that I'd get a chuckle out of it, and I'd kind of like. But based on the last 12 games,
I'm not laughing, pal.
Based on the fact that my general manager just had a laundry list of things that are not appealing about being in Buffalo, like no palm trees and state tax, I would have avoided that last soundbite.
If he's trying to lighten the mood, I have no problem with it because you can't just live in the darkness.
But lighting the mood with it still is a shot at your organization, right? It's getting people to laugh at you, not with you, and they've had enough of that.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I would have avoided that line.
That might not be the way to do it.
I would have avoided that line like the plague. I would have said we've got great fans, and we're going to hear from them tonight, and just leave it at that.
Lindy on the hot seat, 30 games in.
Do you guys want to hear Craig Berube's talk about the Sabres? This is really funny.
Yeah,
if you want to play it. So clip 5 on the Sabres, please, Derek.
Well, it's going to be a hard game, I'll tell you that. That team, you can look at the Montreal score all you want. I mean, Montreal scored some power play goals on them, but they played extremely hard against Montreal. They were pretty good in that game, to be honest with you. They got Darlene back tonight. He's a handful. It'll be a good atmosphere. It'll be a good game, be a competitive game, very competitive game, and our guys got to be ready to go from the start of the drop of the puck, and we got to be competitive right away, and we got to play North hockey right away. This is a very good team talent-wise, and if you turn pucks over and you're not checking properly, they can do some damage.
Is that Sheldon Keefe?
I was just gonna say you went full Sheldon Keefe. And that 6-1 loss to one of the worst teams in the league, they actually were not bad.
Major moral victory against the Canadians.
They weren't bad.
He's just covering himself.
Well, no, but
that's just a wily veteran.
He is for
Right?
sure. But that's the old Keefe move of every opponent you play is
Their metrics are actually very good.
They may not look great, but boy, are they good. Darlene coming back is not insignificant.
Yep.
That's a big deal for them. They've been missing him.
The only guy that Matthews, my prediction that there will be a gloves off fight ever in his career will be against Darlene.
Got a fairly fightable face.
You just can't
Yeah,
stand
let's
him.
send him in. Do it tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah, just really wrench
with
your
his-
back, throwing a right
With
cross.
this 70% back.
Yep.
That's the best idea.
Okay, we take a quick break because we're going Buffalo Sabres talk after the break. Mike Harrington, columnist for the Buffalo News. This guy has been very critical on what has been going on there. We'll get his thoughts on what needs to happen moving forward for the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear from Mike. That and more when we return to Real Kipper and Bourne. Nick Kiprios, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. Welcome back to the Leaf Hour edition of the Real Kipper and Bourne Show. Mike Harrington, Buffalo columnist for the Buffalo News, will join us in a few seconds. It's going to be real interesting to hear from him in terms of what he thinks the Buffalo Sabres need to do moving forward here. Is it 13? I've lost count.
I think it's
JB.
11 straight games.
It's 11 straight games.
Got some points along the way. Loser point here and there.
Does that help?
I
Loser
don't know.
points?
Mike will have answers.
All right, let's welcome him in. Mike, how are you, pal? Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Nick. Yeah, I was actually a foot away from Berube this afternoon when he made that comment about how good the Sabres looked in Montreal the other night at times. Do you know that at one point in the first period there, the shots on goal were 9-0, and the shot attempts were 21-1.
Oh my God.
No, the Sabres did not look good in Montreal the other night.
Well, you just pulled a Doug McLean where I just say hi, and then you just shoot it out of a cannon.
Love it.
Very, very good stuff, Mike, so far. So, with the stretch of bad games here, where is we need the Leafs and their 15,000 fans to come into the building tonight like we need a hole in the head on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's about a 20 right now. Realistically, the whole run they're on, they don't need a 3-game stretch of Toronto, Montreal, Toronto with all the media involved out of Canada. They needed right now to, I think, be in St. Louis and Columbus and nowhere near Toronto and Montreal. But that didn't happen for them. And it's unfortunate because it's an 11-game winless streak. There has been a lot of good games here. They have 6 one-goal losses and 2 other games that were 1 goal with an empty netter. So there's been 8 legitimately competitive games. Tuesday was not one of them. And, coming on the heels of the owner visiting the dressing room on Monday, you would have thought there'd have been more of a response. And now you have to see where are they mentally at all coming into this game against the Leafs when there's going to be 90% of the crowd in their home building rooting for the other team.
Mike, you would say at times over their 13-year playoff drought that there were times you would call them hapless. This group to me does not seem without hap. They're okay. They've got some talent on that team right now, but for Pegula to go in there and say that it's all within that room there, how do you assess what ownership decided to do there and what this team really needs?
I just think they don't know what to do right now, and that's why Terry Pegula showed up in Montreal and talked to them, because I think they're so mentally fragile. Because you're right, people don't realize before this 11-game winless streak, they were 11-6-1 in the previous 18 games. They were in 3rd place in the Atlantic Division, 2 points behind the Florida Panthers. That's not a small sample size. For this thing to completely disintegrate in about 3 weeks is really unbelievable. And it goes back to, December 3rd against Colorado when you blow a 4-0 lead. It's 4-1 in the 3rd period. Dahlin gets hurt. They lose the game 5-4. That was the first of 8 losses in a row in December without Dahlin, who comes back tonight. And I just think that game completely torpedoed their season. And right now there doesn't seem to be any recovery from it. Their defense core has been weak. Their forwards haven't been scoring. The power play has been a disaster. And it's just a question of mental fragility now at this point.
We're talking to Mike Harrington, Buffalo Sabres columnist with the Buffalo News Sports. So when we first heard of Terry Pegula coming in and buying the Buffalo Sabres, it was much like any new owner with deep pockets coming in and being somewhat of a savior, Mike. And here we are today. We're well-versed on his latest visit to the team. But where is it big picture in terms of maybe even the balance between the football club, and we know that he's the owner of the Buffalo Bills, and where are people and where are the players when they see an owner like Pegula come into the room? Is it do Buffalo Sabre fans feel a little slighted that it's all Bills and less Sabres at this point?
There's some of that, but there's just a lot of confusion here. I mean, the players were fine with Pegula coming in. There was a terrific vibe in the locker room Tuesday morning at the morning skate, actually. A lot of players met the media, and there was more of an upbeat feeling than I'd felt all month, and then you got that kind of response in the game. But ultimately, it's not like he's an incredible NFL owner. He got really lucky. He hired a first-time head coach, Sean McDermott, who brought in the GM, Brandon Beane. They drafted the quarterback who a lot of people said don't draft, who turned into Josh Allen. I mean, let's not forget here, Terry Pegula, who's hired people like Ralph Kruger to coach his hockey team, hired Rex Ryan to coach his football team. So, things have gone really well for the Bills. They've had a lot of good decisions made and a lot of strokes of luck. I mean, look back, you're coming up on the 10-year anniversary. The whole plan for the Sabres was predicated on one thing, and it didn't happen. They didn't get Connor McDavid. We'll never know how hockey history would have changed had that lottery gone differently. And then it's been a series of revolving door of coaches and general managers and, the situation with Eichel, and nothing has worked or gone right with this hockey.
So The other day, Elliot Friedman.
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Auston Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kaje Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederick, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure: it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes, or doesn't make, will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes, how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoffman, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minton could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.